The final element to writing a hit song is you need simple but memorable lyrics. Again, this might sound like a paradox, but it is not. Now, one thing Max Martin and many of his Swedish hit songwriting counterparts have said is that actually not having English as their first language has helped them to write hit songs and catchy lyrics. This is because they don't have to worry about things making sense grammatically or even using the correct word in terms of like making sense. They just choose the best words to fit the song. So as a result, their focus is on the sound of the lyrics and whether they fit the melody and not so much in making grammatical sense in the English language. In fact, Max Martin says, don't worry about being grammatically correct. Remember, this is art. Your lyrics don't have to make sense. In fact, it might be better if they don't. After all, I like songs where you're basically an impressionist. You're using impressionistic songwriting versus very literal in-your-face songwriting, right? If you think of painters, there's painters that are very realistic. Maybe it looks exactly like a photograph, and that's great. But you also have impressionism, where you paint artwork that is an impression of what you see in real life. And I think that is a great approach to take with lyrics, because not only is that better for, say, getting sync placements, it's more likely for your music to get, used in movies and television if your lyrics are more impressionistic, but it also can be more relevant to more people because people can take the meaning away that they want from the song versus the meaning just kind of being shoved down their throats. So an example of this is the song that Max Martin wrote for Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time, which was ended up being very controversial because obviously it sounded like there was some domestic abuse going on with Hit Me Baby, but what he actually meant was like hit me back, like call me back. It was his interpretation of the word hit there. So that's where not knowing the English language as well, I guess, was a detriment, but also, hey, being controversial is great for writing a hit song too, because more people are going to share it. The people that love it for being controversial are going to share it, and the people that hate it for being controversial are going to share it because they're going to be like, hey, look at this horrible song. So that's also maybe a bonus tip there as well. Another great example of this, a song not written by Max Martin, but one of my favorite songs is Human by the Killers. One thing they got a lot of flack for was in their chorus, they had the line, "Are we human or are we dancer?" Obviously not grammatically correct, but it fit the lyrics, it fit the melody, and it's one of their most popular songs. It's a huge hit. And so if they had tried to make it fit, it wouldn't have worked. And plus, having it grammatically incorrect, I think adds more interest, adds more mystery to the line. What the heck is he talking about? I got to keep listening to this song, figure out what this is about, look deeper into this song. So I think it's better if you have that kind of element in your music. Other ways to make memorable lyrics are to, number one, have an emotional appeal. Many hit songs tap into universal emotions such as love, heartbreak, joy, nostalgia. That's a big part of the synthwave genre, and relatable lyrics that connect to listeners. You also want to have memorable phrases that listeners can easily pick up on and sing along to. 3 is storytelling. How can you tell a story with your lyrics? We as humans are really drawn to stories, so if you can tell a story that captures people's attention and emotions, they'll be more likely to listen to the song over and over and make it a hit song. Also, vivid imagery. How can you use very specific language and paint a picture with your lyrics instead of just being vague and talking about cliche concepts? Universal themes. This is another way to create memorable lyrics, as hit songs often address themes that are relatable to a wide audience, such as relationships, personal growth, and social issues. And finally, any pop culture references you can throw in as well is another way to make your lyrics memorable. Now, with all that being said, should you even try to write a hit song? Now, this would be a no-brainer in the olden days, right? In the olden days, if you actually wanted to get noticed, if you wanted to get a record deal, if you wanted to get signed and make money as an artist, you had to write a hit song. Because the industry was controlled by gatekeepers, those gatekeepers being the radio stations, the record labels, the big media companies that controlled the music industry. The only way you could get your music to the world, to the people, to the listeners, was by going through these gatekeepers. But today, because of the internet, in the new music industry, there are no more gatekeepers. You can go directly to your audience, which means I think you should no longer be trying to write hit songs for the masses, but instead you should find who are the select smaller niches or subgenres of music that you can write for, right? Find those those subgenres of super fans who are really diehard and passionate about their music, and think about what music would they be interested in, and how can you write music that appeals to them. So an artist who has done this really well is Leah McHenry. She makes multiple six figures and even millions of dollars as an indie artist by writing Celtic symphonic metal music. So that's a very small micro genre of people, but she writes music just to them, to appeal to them. You probably never even heard of her. She's never going to write a hit song, but yet she's hyper successful because she's a big fish in a small pond, right? She doesn't have to compete with the likes of Taylor Swift and all these other hit artists. She only has to stand out in that little micro genre of music. She does well enough. Like I said, she makes six figures a year from her music, and she even launched a brand selling candles, which also like appeals to her audience, and that's a $1 million business. So that's kind of a whole separate subject, how you can monetize in so many ways beyond just music once you have that diehard audience. So when you break down the math, you only really need 1,000 true fans to make a really great income from your music, because a true fan is someone that buys, is absolutely in love with you and buys just about anything you put out. So whenever you put out a new album, whenever you put out some new merch, maybe you have a fan club or people like a Patreon where people can pay you monthly. Your super fans are the ones that are going to buy all that stuff. And so if a super fan spends on average $100 a year with you, you only need 1,000 fans to make $100,000 a year, which I think is a really great income for a musician. So there's this emerging middle class, which is much more obtainable, right? People go to college all the time for 4 years, invest tens of thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper, a degree that they might not even be able to use, might not even help them get a job. Whereas what if instead you dedicated 4 years building up a fan base for your music, right? You drilled down on what your micro genre is, and you created songs that really appealed to them, and you marketed to them for 4 years. You built up this audience. I think that's a pretty much more obtainable goal to get to the point where you're making a full-time income. In the middle class, right? You might not be Taylor Swift, you might not be a pop star, but you can definitely make a solid middle class income as a music artist. So we kind of got to get rid of these old ideas of the starving artist, right? You're either a starving artist or a millionaire. There's a new middle class because of the internet, because of the new music industry that I think artists should strive for. That said, there's still something we can learn from the hit songs, right? I think all the elements I just outlined were valuable things to keep in mind for your micro genre, for your niche that you're writing music for. It doesn't mean maybe you want to change some of these elements. Maybe you don't want to write a song that's only 3 minutes long. Maybe your audience would like longer songs, or maybe they would like songs that are more specific to them, that maybe aren't relevant to a larger audience. So as always, it's kind of nice to know what are the rules, right? First know the rules, and then think about how you might tweak them or even break certain rules to fit with what your goals are and what you want to do. If you want to know more about what I was talking about with finding your micro genre and your 1,000 true fans so you can become a middle-class musician, then be sure to grab my free fan funnel formula in the description below. This walks you through how to become a big fish in a small pond. This will show you how to turn your fans into followers and your followers into profit automatically so you can create more music and live the dream. Or if you want to dive deeper into discovering what your specific microgenre actually is or should be, then click on my video playing on the screen right now. Otherwise, have an awesome day and keep creating.